We'll finish talking about exchange rates. We talked about having at least two different theories of exchange rates, so more is better? Eh. Exchange rate could depend on purchasing power parity or interest rate parity. Also, the trivial notion that the exchange rate at any moment depends on supply and demand for the currency. But between purchasing power parity and interest rate parity, which is right? In the short run, neither is quite enough. Sometimes one or the other holds better. Interest rate parity holds in the shorter term, purchasing power parity holds in the longer term. Does that sound complicated? It is. Sorry, the world is complicated. We just got to live in it. Let's add another complicating factor, inflation. If some country has its price level double, what happens to its exchange rate? By PPP, purchasing power parity, the future exchange rate's got to go down, which has implications for interest rate parity. Recall that several weeks ago, we defined the real interest rate as being the nominal interest rate minus the inflation rate. We can define the real exchange rate as the nominal exchange rate times the ratio of foreign price level to domestic price level. When comparing the sizes of different world economies, sometimes you see comparisons using purchasing power parity, sometimes with real exchange rates. All these complications and interrelationships mean that foreign exchange rates are very important, especially for smaller countries. If foreign exchange rates change suddenly, that can cause a crisis. Expectations are really important, since going back to our equation about interest rate parity, if people expect that future exchange rates will be different from current exchange rates, then that feeds back to the interest rates that governments and other institutions have to pay. That's even worse, since sometimes countries or firms or even individuals will take out loans in foreign currency. When the exchange rate shifts, then boom, repayments get a lot more expensive. Governments really care about the exchange rate and try to manage it in different ways. Some countries just fix a rate. They announce their currency is pegged in value to another currency. Sometimes it's more of a managed float, where their rate is allowed to change a bit, but the country will intervene to nudge the value. Sometimes they allow a float within a band, but intervene if the value gets too far away from the target. Some countries just let their currency value float. Extreme way to fix a value is abandon the domestic currency. Decide the country won't have its own currency anymore. As the countries in the European Union did, they all gave up their own currencies and now they all use the euro. But there's a trade-off. That means they all pay the same interest rates and have the same monetary policy. Within the Eurozone, everybody faces the same interest rate. That can cause difficulty, since maybe Germany or Italy ought to have a different monetary policy. Same if you hear in the news that a small country decides to dollarize. They use the US dollar, but also face US interest rates, cannot have their own monetary policy. That outsources the monetary policy to the US Federal Reserve. But the reason some countries make that choice is that fixing an exchange rate is difficult. They have to regularly intervene in their currency market and might use their own currency to buy up foreign currency, or use foreign currency to buy their own currency. It's running into limits because they don't have an unlimited amount of dollars and they don't want to buy their own currency. They could always print that. The US has a privilege from having the global standard currency. Other places have it tougher.